Hi, this is Dave with DavesTR4A. Welcome back to my channel. So this is another video on my solid state overdrive control. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the wiring changes you have to make, just so you kind of get an idea of the scope of change that you have to be able to do to install this. Well, the first thing we have to do is tell the control if it's connected to an A-type or a J-type overdrive. The way we do that is down in the lower left-hand corner, just to the left of the terminal block, is a little connector called J2, and you have to make sure that the little jumper is between the middle terminal and the bottom terminal as shown in the picture. This beautiful shift knob, it's made out of Bolivian rosewood by Jeremy Chin. And I'll have his contact information in the description section of this video. And it lends itself perfectly to my control because it has a momentary switch built into it. It also comes with a pigtail wiring harness coming out of it, so you can wire it directly into the S1 and S2 connections on my control. Be sure to contact Jeremy if you want to get one of these knobs. So here's a very general set of explanations of the 8 connections on the control. 2 of them are optional for the external LED, but we need to have the other ones. There's much more detailed information in the installation manual as far as wire sizes and that type of thing, but I just kind of wanted to show you what all gets connected up to the thing. And we'll go into more detail in a minute on what all gets connected where. Going from left to right, which is top to bottom on this list, plus bat is going to be coming from your switch 12 volts to power the unit. And then the ground is, of course, it's pretty obvious you need a ground. INT is the interrupt switch status line. S1 and S2 are both sides of the overdrive switch. The next 2 terminals, external LED A and K, are provided to let you install a panel mount LED to show the status of whether the overdrive is engaged or not. I'll have some suggestions in the instructions on ones that I've used that are fairly inexpensive. So anyway, the last but not least is RLY, and that's the solenoid drive, or in the case of the A-type overdrive, it's the overdrive relay. So that's it for connections. So let's go in a little more detail about how we switch things around here to make this thing work. Actually, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about how the stock wiring works on an A-type overdrive. So let's look at how this circuit works. You have a relay. We have to control that relay somehow. So what that means, basically providing power to the coil of the relay to energize the contacts, okay? So what you need for that is a power on one side and ground on the other. One side, the W1 terminal, is a white wire that goes to switch 12 volts on the fuse block. This is the unfused side of that, by the way. Okay, the other side, so now you have power to the coil. We need ground. They have a pretty elegant and simple way of doing that to make sure that you're only going to have the overdrive on in a valid gear. So what they do is they have the transmission interlock switches that are open, normally open switches. That means that there's no connection between the terminals. So what happens is one of the switches will close when you're in a valid gear, and that gets you ground all the way up to the switch on the steering column. So all you got to do is make that connection, and it'll energize that relay. So when you flip the switch down on the column, it energizes that coil and pulls in the contact on the relay, which in turn provides power to the coil on the solenoid in the transmission. So here's my point of aggravation that drove me to design my control. As long as that overdrive switch is in the on position, whether you forgot it or not, is if when you go into like second, third, or fourth, it's going to want to go into overdrive. And so perfect example is you come off the freeway, you've been driving for a couple hours, going somewhere, and you get to the end of the off-ramp, you stop, you still in overdrive, but you forgot all about it. You start out in first, you go in the second, all of a sudden it jumps into overdrive. This just aggravates me to no end. So that's what drove me to design my control. So let me show you how you would change this wiring to go from the stock control circuit here to installing one of my solid state overdrive controls. I'm going to apologize for how cheesy this is, because I basically just snipped the page out of the instruction manual to show basically how this thing wires up. There's a lot more detail in the instructions, but so basically you can see that to wire it up, you're going to connect the wire from the bat terminal to the white wire on the terminal block fuse holder, and then we need a ground also, so that's can go from like maybe one of the mounting holes. The wire that's coming off of the two interrupt switches that used to go to the column-mounted overdrive switch now goes to the INT terminal on the terminal block. So that's how control knows the status of the interrupt switches. The next two, S1 and S2, are going to go to our cool-looking shift knob with the momentary switch in it, and then the panel mount LED. I'll have a part number for that, as I said in the description. That's going to the external A and K terminals on the terminal block. And then last but not least, we want to run a wire from the relay terminal on the terminal block on this board to the W2 terminal on the overdrive relay in the case of a A-type overdrive. And then I'll have other instructions for specific to the J-type, since that doesn't have a relay. But this is just to show the general connections of the control. So I hope this gives you guys some insight into how complex it's going to be to install this. I don't think it's necessarily that bad, but if you're not comfortable making this kind of a installation, maybe it might be a club thing or something. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, I appreciate your input. Have a great holiday, you guys. We'll see you on the next video. That's it for now. Please like and subscribe.